The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clattered against the concrete driveway as I heard my wife's voice drift through the kitchen window above me. It wasn't the words that made me freeze under the hood of my battered Ford pickup. It was the tone. Low, intimate, the kind of voice she used to use with me about 15 years ago. "Don't worry, he's extra weight," Veronica said, her laugh sharp as broken glass. "I'll dump him soon enough." Extra weight? I wiped my hands on an oil-stained rag and fought the urge to slam the hood shut. Extra weight? Lady, I bench press more than your pretty boy board member's IQ, and that's saying something considering Ethan Drake's got the intellectual capacity of a goldfish with a concussion. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name's Brandon Ellis, and I've been married to the Ice Queen upstairs for 18 years. 18 years of watching her climb the corporate ladder while I fixed everything that broke in our lives. Cars, appliances, relationships with neighbors she'd offended. I'm 43, built like the boxer I used to be, and apparently invisible enough that my own wife forgets I exist when she's planning my disposal. The thing about being underestimated your whole life is that you develop certain skills. Patience, observation, the ability to blend into the background while people reveal their true selves. Right now, those skills were telling me that my marriage wasn't just over. It was about to become a war. I crept closer to the window, staying in the shadows cast by the overgrown maple tree we'd planted when we first bought this house in Millbrook Heights. Back then, this neighborhood meant something. Now it's caught between the old industrial bones of our Rust Belt city and the shiny new tech corridor where Veronica runs her company like a medieval fiefdom. "The timing has to be perfect," she continued, her voice dropping even lower. "Brandon's too stupid to see it coming, but I need the board's approval first. Once the quarterly numbers come in, I'll have enough ammunition to justify everything." Ammunition. She was talking about our marriage like a hostile takeover, which, knowing Veronica, it probably was. I pulled out my phone and started recording, holding it close to the window. The audio quality wasn't great, but it would do for now. In my line of work, cybersecurity consulting, you learn that information is the ultimate weapon, and my dear wife was about to hand me enough ammunition to level a small country. "Ethan, you're being paranoid," she said. "Ethan Drake." Of course it was Ethan Drake, the golden boy of Pinnacle Tech Solutions, Veronica's company, 38 years old, drives a Tesla Model S, wears suits that cost more than my truck, and apparently has been test driving my wife while I've been fixing her transmission. The irony wasn't lost on me. "He spends half his time in that disgusting gym with those Neanderthals," Veronica continued. "The other half under the hood of that piece of junk in the driveway. Trust me, he has no idea what's happening in the real world." The real world. Right. The real world where my wife of 18 years was planning to throw me away like yesterday's newspaper while screwing her business partner. The real world where I was apparently too stupid to notice that she'd been working late every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 months, coming home smelling like expensive cologne. That sure as hell wasn't mine. But here's what Veronica never understood about me. I might work with my hands, but I think with my head. And right now, my head was spinning with possibilities. I ended the recording and slipped back to my truck, making enough noise with my tools to announce my presence. Within 30 seconds, the kitchen window slammed shut. By the time I walked through the front door, Veronica was in the living room, laptop open, looking like the picture of professional concentration. "How's the truck?" she asked without looking up, her voice perfectly neutral. "Oh, I said, settling into my recliner and cracking open a beer. "Just fixing some extra weight." She glanced up sharply, but I was already focused on the television, channel surfing like I didn't have a care in the world. The thing about being married to a master manipulator is that you either learn to play the game or you get played. And I'd been getting played for long enough. My phone buzzed with a text from Ricky Alvarez, the owner of Southside Boxing Gym where I spent most of my free time. "You coming in tonight? Got some new heavy bags that need breaking in?" I typed back. "Wouldn't miss it. Got some aggression to work out." That was an understatement. But first, I needed to do some reconnaissance. If Veronica wanted to play corporate espionage with my life, she was about to learn that her husband had picked up a few tricks during his years in cybersecurity. The beautiful thing about being married to someone for 18 years is that you know all their passwords, all their habits, all their weaknesses. And Veronica Ellis, CEO of Pinnacle Tech Solutions, was about to discover that her biggest weakness was underestimating the man she'd decided to throw away. I finished my beer and stood up, stretching like I was getting ready for bed. "I'm going to hit the gym for a couple hours," I announced. Veronica murmured, not bothering to look up from her laptop. "Don't wait up." "Wouldn't dream of it," I said, and I meant every word. Southside Boxing Gym smelled like sweat, old leather, and honest work, everything my life had been missing lately. The place occupied the ground floor of a converted warehouse in the industrial district, all exposed brick and hanging fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry wasps. It was the kind of place where nobody cared what you did for a living or how much money you made. They only cared whether you could take a punch and give one back. Ricky Sting Alvarez was waiting for me at the heavy bags, wrapping his hands with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd spent 30 years in the ring before a detached retina ended his professional career. At 50, he was still built like a middleweight, with graying hair and scars that told stories he never talked about. "You look like someone pissed in your cornflakes," he said, tossing me a pair of hand wraps. Something like that. I started wrapping my hands, focusing on the familiar ritual. "Ricky, you ever been married?" "3 times. Why do you think I own a gym instead of a house?" I laughed despite myself. "What's the worst way you found out one of them was cheating?" Ricky stopped what he was doing and gave me a long look. "We talking hypothetically here, or are we talking about Veronica?" That was the thing about Ricky. 30 years of getting punched in the head hadn't dulled his instincts. "We're talking about my wife thinking I'm too stupid to notice she's been working late with Ethan Drake. The pretty boy from her company?" Ricky's expression darkened. "That guy's been in here exactly once. Lasted about 10 minutes before he decided the gym was too authentic for his taste. Yeah, well, apparently my wife finds him plenty authentic enough." Ricky finished wrapping his hands and moved to the heavy bag. "So what are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to get proof first. Then I'm going to decide whether I want a divorce or a war." "And if it's a war?" I threw my first punch at the bag, feeling the satisfying impact travel up my arm. "Then I'm going to remind everyone in this town why you don't mess with a guy who's got nothing left to lose." We worked out in comfortable silence for the next hour, the rhythm of punches and footwork clearing my head and focusing my thoughts. By the time we finished, I had a plan. It wasn't pretty, and it wasn't nice, but it was thorough. The first step was information gathering. I drove home through the empty streets of Millbrook Heights, past the dark windows of neighbors who were probably sleeping peacefully in their beds, blissfully unaware that their morning gossip was about to get a lot more interesting. Veronica's BMW was in the driveway, but the house was dark, except for the glow of her laptop in the living room. She was still working, or at least that's what she'd tell me if I asked. I parked my truck and walked around to the back door, using my key as quietly as possible. The house was silent, except for the soft clicking of keyboard keys from the living room. I crept upstairs to our bedroom, where Veronica's purse sat on the dresser like a treasure chest, waiting to be opened. The beautiful thing about being married to someone for 18 years is that you know their patterns. Veronica was obsessively organized, which meant she kept everything: receipts, business cards, appointment reminders. She also had a habit of using the same password for everything: Pinnacle 2019, the year she became CEO. Her phone was charging on the nightstand. I picked it up and entered the passcode, my heart hammering as the screen unlocked. The text messages were a goldmine. Ethan: "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, same place?" Veronica: "Of course, he's working late anyway." Ethan: "Good, I have something special planned." Veronica: "You always do. That's why I'm keeping you around." The timestamp showed they'd been exchanging messages for over 3 months. 3 months of planning meetings that weren't meetings, business dinners that weren't business, and late nights that weren't work. But it was the deleted email folder that really got my attention. Veronica thought she was clever, moving their correspondence to a folder marked Archived Marketing Materials. But she'd forgotten that her husband made a living understanding how people tried to hide their digital tracks. The emails painted a picture of a relationship that had moved far beyond simple adultery. They were planning something bigger, something that involved the company, the board of directors, and my complete removal from Veronica's life. "The quarterly numbers will give us the leverage we need," Ethan had written 2 weeks ago. "Once the board sees the growth projections, they'll approve the restructuring. We can eliminate the extra weight and streamline operations." There was that phrase again. Extra weight. But the email that made me freeze was from last week. Brandon's cybersecurity contract comes up for renewal next month. I suggest we let it lapse. No point in paying him to snoop around our systems when we're trying to keep things quiet. Besides, the board will see it as cost-cutting. Win-win. They weren't just planning to divorce me. They were planning to destroy my livelihood in the process. I screenshotted everything, uploaded the images to a secure cloud account, and put Veronica's phone back exactly where I'd found it. Then I sat on the edge of our bed, the bed where we'd made love, made plans, made promises that apparently meant nothing, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Veronica wanted a villain. She was about to get one. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when she came downstairs, dressed in one of her power suits and checking her phone. She looked beautiful, professional, and completely untrustworthy. "Good morning," she said, not bothering to look at me. "Morning. Working late again tonight?" "Board meeting. Could run long." The lie rolled off her tongue like she'd been practicing. Of course. I handed her a cup of coffee, black, the way she liked it. "Hey, I was thinking maybe we should plan a vacation, get away from work for a while." She finally looked at me, and for just a moment, I saw something that might have been guilt flicker across her face. "Brandon, you know how busy things are right now. Maybe after the quarterly reports." "Right. After the quarterly reports." I smiled, and she actually smiled back, probably relieved that her stupid husband was being so understanding. After she left, I called in sick to my current consulting job and spent the day doing research. Ethan Drake lived in Riverside Towers, the most expensive condo complex in the city. He drove a silver Tesla Model S, license plate Pinnacle. He had a standing reservation every Tuesday and Thursday at the Riverside Hotel, room 412. The same Tuesdays and Thursdays that Veronica worked late. I also discovered that Ethan had a reputation around town as a player. 3 different women had filed complaints with HR over the past 2 years, all quietly settled with non-disclosure agreements. He was exactly the kind of man who would seduce a married woman and then help her destroy her husband's life for sport. But what really caught my attention was a detail buried in the company's public filings. Ethan Drake owned a significant number of stock options that would vest immediately if there was a major restructuring of the company. The kind of restructuring that might happen if the CEO decided to clean house and eliminate extra weight. Suddenly, this wasn't just about adultery. It was about money. Lots of money. That evening, I drove to the Riverside Hotel and parked across the street with a clear view of the entrance. At 6:47 p.m., Ethan's Tesla pulled into the valet parking. At 7:15 p.m., Veronica's BMW arrived. I sat there for 3 hours, watching the windows of room 412, thinking about 18 years of marriage and wondering when exactly my wife had decided that I was disposable. When the lights finally went out, I started my truck and drove home. But I made one stop first. The Tesla was parked in the hotel's underground garage, sleek and silver and completely unprotected. I pulled out my pocket knife and walked around the car slowly, like a predator circling prey. The tires were expensive, probably cost more than most people made in a month. It would be a shame if something happened to them. I punctured all 4 tires, not deep enough to cause a blowout, but deep enough to ensure they'd go flat within a few hours. Then I filled the exhaust pipe with expanding foam from a can I'd picked up at the hardware store. Finally, I left a note under the windshield wiper. "Enjoy your ride, Romeo. A concerned citizen." By the time I got home, Veronica was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and a satisfied smile. "How was the board meeting?" I asked. "Productive," she said. "Very productive." I'm sure it was. My phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from our security system. Motion detected in the driveway. I opened the app and saw a delivery truck pulling away, and Veronica walking back to the house with an envelope in her hand. She was still in the kitchen when I came downstairs, the envelope open on the table in front of her. Her face had gone pale. "Everything okay?" I asked. She looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before, part fear, part calculation, part something that might have been respect. "Someone slashed Ethan's tires tonight," she said carefully, "at the hotel. That's terrible. Did they catch who did it?" "No." She was watching my face intently. "But there's security footage of the parking garage." I poured myself a glass of water and sat down across from her. "Well, I'm sure the police will figure it out. These things usually have a way of working themselves out." We stared at each other across the kitchen table, and for the first time in months, I felt like we were actually communicating. She knew that I knew, and I knew that she knew that I knew. The game had officially begun. 3 days later, Veronica served me divorce papers at the company Christmas party. She'd planned it perfectly, of course. The entire Pinnacle Tech Solutions staff was there, along with board members, major clients, and half the business community of Millbrook Heights. The venue was the ballroom at the Riverside Hotel, the same hotel where she'd been meeting Ethan, because my wife had always appreciated irony. I was standing by the bar, nursing a beer and making small talk with some of the IT guys I'd worked with over the years, when Veronica approached with that predatory smile she wore during hostile takeovers. "Brandon," she said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "I have something for you." She handed me a manila envelope with the kind of theatrical flourish that would have been impressive if it wasn't so obviously rehearsed. The conversations around us died as people sensed drama in the air. I opened the envelope and pulled out the papers, taking my time to read through them while the crowd watched. Divorce papers, alimony demands, a restraining order request, and a letter from the company's legal department terminating my consulting contract, effective immediately. "Wow," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is quite a Christmas present, honey." Veronica's smile widened. I thought it was time we both moved on to bigger and better things. Bigger and better. I looked around the room, noting the faces watching us, some shocked, some embarrassed, some clearly enjoying the show. "You mean, like Ethan Drake?" The silence that followed was deafening. Veronica's face went white, then red, then white again. Ethan, who'd been standing near the appetizer table with a martini in his hand, suddenly looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "I don't know what you're implying," Veronica said, but her voice had lost its confidence. "I'm not implying anything." I folded the papers and put them back in the envelope. "I'm stating facts. You've been having an affair with your board member for 3 months. You've been planning to destroy my career as part of your exit strategy, and you thought I was too stupid to figure it out." The room was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. Someone's champagne glass slipped from their fingers and shattered on the marble floor. "Brandon," Veronica hissed, "you're making a scene." Am I? Because it seems to me like you're the one who decided to make our private business public. I looked around the room again, making eye contact with as many people as possible. But since we're sharing, let me ask everyone here a question. How many of you knew that your CEO was using company resources to conduct her affair? The hotel rooms charged to the corporate account? The business trips that were really romantic getaways? That's enough, Ethan said, stepping forward. He was trying to look authoritative, but sweat was beading on his forehead. Is it, though? I turned to face him directly. Because I'm just getting started. Did you know that Ethan here has been quietly buying up stock options that will make him a very wealthy man if the company restructures? Funny how that coincides with my wife's decision to eliminate what she calls extra weight from her life. You're drunk, Veronica said desperately. You don't know what you're talking about. Actually, I'm stone cold sober, and I know exactly what I'm talking about. I pulled out my phone and held it up. Would you like me to play the recording of your phone conversation from Tuesday night? The one where you called me extra weight and discussed the timeline for dumping me? The color drained from her face completely. Around us, people were starting to whisper, phones were coming out, and I could practically feel the gossip mill of Millbrook Heights spinning into overdrive. Or maybe, I continued, you'd prefer I share some of the emails you and Ethan have been exchanging? The ones in your archived marketing materials folder? That's when Ethan made his mistake. He stepped toward me with his chest puffed out and his fists clenched, probably thinking he could intimidate me the way he intimidated the women who'd filed complaints against him. You need to shut your mouth, he said. I laughed. Or what? You'll hit me? In front of all these witnesses? That would be perfect for the wrongful termination lawsuit I'm about to file. He swung at me anyway. I saw it coming from a mile away, a wild, clumsy haymaker thrown by a man who'd never been in a real fight in his life. I stepped back, let his fist whistle past my face, and watched him stumble forward off balance. Is that the best you've got? I asked. You hit about as hard as your stock portfolio performs. The crowd gasped. Someone started recording with their phone. Ethan's face turned purple with rage and embarrassment. Gentlemen, please, said Harold Morrison, the chairman of the board, stepping between us. This is neither the time nor the place. You're absolutely right, I said. This is a Christmas party. We should be celebrating. I raised my beer bottle in a mock toast. Here's to honesty, transparency, and getting exactly what you deserve. I drained the bottle, set it on the nearest table, and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted in front of me like I was Moses crossing the Red Sea. Brandon, Veronica called after me, her voice cracking. Please don't. I turned back to look at her one last time. She was standing in the middle of the ballroom in her expensive dress, surrounded by colleagues and clients and board members, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. Don't what? I asked. Don't defend myself? Don't tell the truth? Don't fight back when you try to destroy my life? I shook my head. Sorry, sweetheart. You wanted to play hardball. Game on. I walked out of the hotel into the cold December night, leaving behind 18 years of marriage and whatever reputation I'd had as the quiet, dependable husband who fixed things and stayed out of the way. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing with text messages. Some were from friends and colleagues expressing shock and support. Others were from reporters who'd somehow already gotten wind of the story. And one was from my daughter Layla, away at college. Dad? What the hell is happening? Mom's friend just called me crying. I texted back. Your mother and I are getting divorced. You'll hear a lot of stories. Most of them will be true. She called immediately. Dad, this is insane. Mom said you attacked Ethan Drake at a Christmas party? I didn't attack anyone. He swung at me, I dodged, and he fell down. There's probably video. This is going to be all over social media by tomorrow. Probably. There was a long pause. Are you okay? That was a complicated question. Was I okay with my marriage being over? Yes. Was I okay with being publicly humiliated and professionally sabotaged? Not so much. I'm fine, sweetheart. Your mother made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. Dad, please don't do anything crazy. I looked around the empty house, our house where we'd planned to grow old together, and felt that cold, hard thing in my chest expand a little more. Define crazy, I said. The video went viral within 12 hours. Someone at the Christmas party had captured the entire confrontation on their phone, and by morning, it was all over Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. The comments were brutal. CEO throws husband under the bus for boy toy. Plot twist. The husband fights back. This is better than reality TV. But it was Layla's TikTok that really twisted the knife. My own daughter, the one I'd worked 2 jobs to put through college, had posted a video titled, "When Your Dad Becomes the Town Villain," with clips from the Christmas party and her own commentary. So my dad just destroyed my mom's career because he can't handle being divorced like a normal person. Now I'm the girl whose father is a psycho. Thanks, Dad. The video had 50,000 views and counting. I was sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee and watching my life implode on social media when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see Detective Janice Hall standing on my front porch, looking official and slightly amused. Janice and I had a history. She'd been 2 years behind me in high school, and we dated briefly before I met Veronica. She was smart, tough, and had never liked my wife, a fact that was about to work in my favor. "Morning, Brandon," she said when I opened the door. "Mind if I come in?" Let me guess. Ethan Drake filed assault charges. He tried to. Unfortunately for him, there were about 50 witnesses who saw him throw the first punch. "And miss?" She stepped into the kitchen and accepted the cup of coffee I offered. "Nice work, by the way. That dodge was textbook." "Thanks. So what brings you by?" "Couple of things. First, someone vandalized Drake's Tesla again last night, spray-painted homewrecker across the windshield. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" I sipped my coffee and considered my answer. I was here all night. Alone. Drinking beer and feeling sorry for myself. Uh-huh. And I suppose you don't know anything about the anonymous tip that was sent to the State Ethics Board about Pinnacle Tech's expense account irregularities? Actually, I didn't know about that one, but I wasn't about to admit it. Sounds like someone's doing their civic duty. Janice smiled. "Brandon, I've known you for 25 years. You're a lot of things, but you're not stupid. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Veronica Ellis has friends in high places, and she's not going to take this lying down." "What makes you think I'm planning anything?" "Because I know what you look like when you're angry, and right now you look like a man with nothing left to lose." She was right, of course, but what she didn't know was that I'd already lost everything that mattered. My marriage, my reputation, my relationship with my daughter, all of it was gone. Which meant I was free to focus on the one thing I had left, making sure the people who destroyed my life paid the price. After Janice left, I drove to Southside Boxing Gym to clear my head and plan my next move. Ricky was waiting for me with the heavy bags and a knowing look. "Saw the video," he said. "Nice footwork." "Thanks. Any advice for a guy who just became the most hated man in Millbrook Heights?" "Yeah, don't stop now. You've got them on the ropes. Finish the fight." We worked out in silence for an hour, the rhythm of punches and movement helping me think through my options. By the time we finished, I had a plan. It wasn't pretty, but it was thorough. The first step was intelligence gathering. If Veronica wanted to play corporate warfare, I needed to understand the battlefield. I spent the afternoon in the public library using their computers to research Pinnacle Tech Solutions' financial records, board structure, and recent personnel changes. What I found was interesting. The company was more vulnerable than it appeared. Several major contracts were up for renewal in the next quarter, and there had been a series of small but concerning security breaches over the past year. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to make clients nervous. More importantly, I discovered that Ethan Drake wasn't the only board member with questionable ethics. 3 others had financial ties to companies that did business with Pinnacle, creating potential conflicts of interest that would be very embarrassing if they became public. But the most interesting discovery was a name I hadn't expected to see: Tina McAllister. Tina was Veronica's best friend from college and the company's PR director. According to the financial records, she'd been receiving unusually large bonuses over the past 2 years, bonuses that seemed disproportionate to the company's actual PR needs. I pulled up Tina's social media profiles and found photos from expensive vacations, designer clothes, and a lifestyle that seemed well beyond what a PR director should be able to afford. Either she was very good at her job or she was very good at something else. That evening, I got my answer. I was parked outside Pinnacle Tech's office building, watching employees leave for the day, when I saw Tina and Veronica walking to the parking garage together. They were having an intense conversation, and Tina looked upset. I followed them at a distance, staying far enough back to avoid detection. They drove to a small restaurant on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where business people go when they don't want to be seen. I parked across the street and used my phone's camera to zoom in on their table by the window. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language told the story. Veronica was doing most of the talking, gesturing emphatically. Tina was shaking her head, looking scared. Then Tina pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. Veronica opened it, counted what appeared to be cash, and nodded approvingly. Blackmail? Bribery? I wasn't sure, but it was definitely something that wouldn't look good in the company's annual report. I was about to leave when a third person joined their table. Harold Morrison, the chairman of the board. The same Harold Morrison who'd tried to break up the fight at the Christmas party. Now things were getting interesting. The 3 of them talked for another hour, with Harold doing most of the listening. When they finally left, they went in separate directions, but not before Harold handed Veronica what looked like a business card. I followed Harold to his car and used my phone to photograph his license plate. Then I drove home and spent the evening doing research. Harold Morrison was clean on the surface, respected businessman, pillar of the community, married for 30 years. But a deeper dive revealed some interesting connections. His investment firm had been quietly buying up real estate in the area where Pinnacle Tech was planning to expand. Real estate that would become very valuable if the expansion went through. Real estate that would become worthless if the company collapsed due to scandal. Suddenly, the pieces started falling into place. This wasn't just about adultery or even corporate restructuring. This was about a conspiracy involving board members, financial manipulation, and possibly fraud, and I was the only one who knew about it. My phone rang, interrupting my research. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Brandon Ellis? Speaking. This is Marcus Webb from the Millbrook Heights Gazette. I was wondering if you'd like to comment on the allegations your wife has made about your behavior. What allegations? She's claiming you've been stalking her and Mr. Drake, vandalizing property and making threats. She's filed for a restraining order. Of course she had. When you can't win the game fairly, you change the rules. Mr. Webb, I said, I think you're going to find that this story is a lot more complicated than my wife is making it seem. Give me 24 hours, and I'll have some information that will change your perspective completely. What kind of information? The kind that wins Pulitzer Prizes. I hung up and looked around my empty house. Veronica thought she could destroy me with legal maneuvers and media manipulation. She thought I was just a blue-collar guy who wouldn't know how to fight back against her corporate warfare tactics. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for Friday morning at the county courthouse. Veronica had done her homework. She'd hired the best lawyer in town, gathered character witnesses, and painted me as an unstable man who couldn't handle rejection. What she hadn't counted on was my own preparation. I arrived at the courthouse with a briefcase full of evidence and Detective Janice Hall at my side. Janice wasn't there in an official capacity, but her presence sent a message. The police weren't buying Veronica's victim narrative. Judge Patricia Hendricks had a reputation for no-nonsense proceedings and zero tolerance for wasted time. She listened to Veronica's lawyer present the case for the restraining order, stalking, harassment, property damage, threats of violence. "Your Honor," Veronica's lawyer said, "my client is in fear for her safety. Mr. Ellis has become increasingly unstable since learning about the divorce proceedings. He's been following her, vandalizing her colleague's property, and making public scenes designed to embarrass and intimidate her." Judge Hendricks looked at me over her reading glasses. "Mr. Ellis, how do you respond to these allegations?" I stood up and opened my briefcase. "Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that will show this restraining order request is part of a larger pattern of manipulation and fraud." Veronica's lawyer objected, but Judge Hendricks was curious. "I'll allow it, but make it quick, Mr. Ellis." I handed her copies of the emails between Veronica and Ethan, the financial records showing irregular bonuses to Tina McAllister, and photographs of the secret meeting between Veronica, Tina, and Harold Morrison. "Your Honor, my wife isn't seeking protection from domestic violence. She's seeking protection from exposure. She and her associates have been using Pinnacle Tech Solutions as their personal piggy bank while planning to eliminate anyone who might discover their activities." The judge studied the documents for several minutes, while the courtroom waited in silence. Finally, she looked up. "Mr. Ellis, these are serious allegations. Do you have any direct evidence of criminal activity?" "Not yet, Your Honor, but I believe a proper investigation would uncover significant financial irregularities." "And, Mrs. Ellis, how do you respond to these documents?" Veronica had gone pale during my presentation. "Your Honor, those emails are taken out of context. My husband is a cybersecurity consultant. He knows how to manipulate digital evidence." "Are you claiming these emails are fabricated?" "I'm saying they don't show what he claims they show." Judge Hendricks made a note on her pad. "I'm going to deny the restraining order request at this time. However, Mr. Ellis, I'm also ordering you to maintain a reasonable distance from your wife and her colleagues while the divorce proceedings are ongoing. And if I see you in my courtroom again on harassment charges, you won't like the outcome." It was a victory, but a small one. As we left the courthouse, Veronica caught up with me in the parking lot. "You think you're so clever," she said, her composure finally cracking, "but you have no idea what you're dealing with." "Enlighten me." "This isn't just about us, Brandon. There are people involved who won't appreciate your interference." "You mean Harold Morrison? Or are you talking about someone else?" Her eyes widened slightly, enough to confirm that I'd hit close to the mark. "Stay out of this," she said, "for your own good." Is that a threat? It's advice, from someone who used to care about you. She walked away, leaving me with more questions than answers, but I didn't have long to wait for clarification. That afternoon, I received a phone call from an unknown number. "Mr. Ellis, this is Tina McAllister. I think we need to talk." We met at a coffee shop on the other side of town, far from Pinnacle Tech's offices and the usual haunts of Millbrook Heights business community. Tina looked nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder and jumping at every sound. "I saw what happened at the courthouse," she said. "Veronica is furious." "I imagine she is. What do you want, Tina?" "I want to make a deal." That got my attention. "What kind of deal?" "I'll tell you everything I know about what's really been happening at Pinnacle Tech. In exchange, you keep my name out of whatever you're planning to do with the information." "And why would you do that?" Tina laughed bitterly. "Because I'm tired of being Veronica's puppet, and because I know that when this all falls apart, she's going to throw me under the bus to save herself." "Tell me about the money." "What money?" "The bonuses, the cash payments, the lifestyle you can't afford on a PR director's salary." Tina was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. "It started small. Veronica asked me to handle some personal expenses through the company accounts. dinners with clients that were really dates with Ethan, hotel rooms for their meetings, things like that. And it escalated? She said it was temporary, just until she could restructure the company and eliminate some overhead. She promised me a promotion, a raise, stock options, in exchange for helping her commit fraud. It wasn't supposed to be fraud, it was supposed to be creative accounting. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. What about Harold Morrison? What's his role in this? Harold's the one who came up with the real estate scheme. He's been buying up property around the planned expansion site using information that isn't public yet. When the expansion is announced, he'll make millions. And if the company collapses instead, then he loses everything, which is why he's been pressuring Veronica to move faster on the restructuring. Get rid of anyone who might ask uncomfortable questions. Anyone like me. You were never supposed to figure it out, Brandon. You were supposed to be the quiet husband who took his divorce settlement and disappeared. I leaned back in my chair, processing everything she'd told me. Tina, I need you to understand something. This isn't going away. Too many people know too much. The best thing you can do is cooperate with the authorities when the time comes. What authorities? The ones I'm going to call as soon as I leave here. Her face went white. You said you'd keep my name out of it. I said I'd consider it, but you're an accessory to fraud, Tina. The only way to protect yourself is to get ahead of this thing. She started to cry. Quiet, desperate tears that probably would have moved me if I hadn't spent the past week watching my life get systematically destroyed by the people I'd trusted most. What do you want me to do? I want you to wear a wire to your next meeting with Veronica and Harold. I want you to get them to admit what they've been doing, and I want you to do it before they figure out that you've been talking to me. They'll eliminate me if they find out. They'll destroy you anyway when this falls apart. At least this way you have some control over how it happens. She agreed, reluctantly. We arranged to meet again in 2 days, after she'd had a chance to set up a meeting with the others. As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. Not for my marriage, that was gone and buried, but for justice, for the satisfaction of watching the people who'd tried to destroy me get exactly what they deserved. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. I texted back, too late for that. I already regret everything. The response came immediately. This is your last warning. I laughed out loud. After everything I'd been through, they thought they could intimidate me with anonymous threats? They were about to learn that threatening a man with nothing left to lose is like poking a sleeping bear with a stick. The bear was awake now, and it was hungry. The wire worked perfectly. Tina had arranged a meeting with Veronica and Harold at the lakeside vacation house that Pinnacle Tech owned for client entertainment. It was isolated, private, and exactly the kind of place where people felt comfortable saying things they shouldn't say. I was parked a quarter mile away listening through the receiver that Detective Hall had reluctantly agreed to provide. What I heard was better than I'd hoped. The Ellis situation is getting out of control, Harold was saying. He knows too much and he's not going to stop. I can handle Brandon, Veronica replied. He's always been more bark than bite. Really? Because from where I'm sitting, he's been doing plenty of biting. The courthouse hearing, the media attention, the questions from the ethics board. This is exactly what we were trying to avoid. What do you want me to do, Harold? He's my husband. I know how he thinks. Apparently not, or we wouldn't be in this mess. There was a pause, then Tina's voice. Maybe we should just come clean, cut our losses and— Absolutely not, Harold interrupted. Do you have any idea how much money is at stake here? The real estate deals alone are worth $15 million. I'm not walking away from that because your friend couldn't keep her husband in line. Then what do you suggest? Veronica asked. We accelerate the timeline. Announce the restructuring next week before Ellis can cause any more damage. Fire him publicly, destroy his credibility, make him look like a disgruntled employee making false accusations. And if that doesn't work? Harold's voice turned cold. Then we consider other options. What kind of other options? The kind that ensure Brandon Ellis stops being a problem permanently. Even through the static of the receiver, the threat was unmistakable. I looked at Detective Hall, who was sitting in the passenger seat of my truck with her own headphones on. "Did he just threaten to eliminate your ex-husband?" she asked. "Ex-husband-to-be. And yeah, I think he did." "That's enough for me." She reached for her radio. "This is Detective Hall. I need backup at the Pinnacle Tech Lake House. We've got conspiracy, fraud, and threats of violence." But I put my hand on her arm. "Wait. Brandon, they just threatened your life." "I know, but I want to hear the rest of this." Harold was still talking. "Tina, you've been quiet. Are you having second thoughts about our arrangement?" "No," Tina said, but her voice was shaky. "I just think we need to be careful. Brandon isn't stupid and he has friends in the police department." "Friends like Detective Hall?" Veronica asked. "I've heard rumors about their history." "What kind of rumors?" Harold demanded. "They dated in high school. She's been helping him behind the scenes." "If they suspected Janice was involved, she could be in danger too." "That's useful information," Harold said. "If we can discredit the detective, it undermines any evidence Ellis might try to present." "How do we discredit a police detective?" "Leave that to me. I have connections in the department." That was enough. I nodded to Detective Hall, who immediately called for backup and started coordinating the arrest operation. But as we sat there waiting for the other units to arrive, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Layla's number. "Dad, where are you?" Her voice was panicked. "I'm working, sweetheart. What's wrong?" "Someone broke into your house. The neighbors called me because they couldn't reach you. The place is trashed." My heart sank. While I'd been focused on gathering evidence against Veronica and her co-conspirators, they'd been making their own moves. "Are you at the house now?" "Yeah, I drove down from school. Dad, it's bad. They destroyed everything. Your computer, your files, even your boxing trophies from high school." "Listen to me carefully, Layla. Get out of that house right now. Go to a public place, a restaurant or a store, and stay there until I can meet you." "Dad, you're scaring me." "Good. You should be scared. The people who did this aren't playing games." I hung up and looked at Detective Hall. "I have to go. My daughter's in danger." "Brandon, we're in the middle of an arrest operation. You can't leave now." "Then arrest them fast." I started the truck and drove toward town, leaving Detective Hall to coordinate the takedown at the lake house. As I drove, I called Ricky at the gym. "I need a favor," I said when he answered. "Name it." "Meet me at my house. Bring whatever you think we might need for a fight." "What kind of fight?" "The kind where people get hurt." Ricky was waiting in my driveway when I arrived, along with two other guys from the gym, Tommy Rodriguez and Mike Hammer Sullivan, both ex-military and both the kind of men you wanted on your side in a crisis. The house looked like a tornado had hit it. Furniture overturned, windows broken, personal belongings scattered and destroyed. But it was the message spray-painted on the living room wall that really got my attention. "Last warning." "Subtle," Ricky said, surveying the damage. "Where's your daughter?" Tommy asked. "Safe, I hope." I tried calling Layla again, but her phone went straight to voicemail. That's when I heard the car doors slam outside. Through the broken front window, I could see 3 men walking up my driveway. They were dressed in suits, but moved like thugs, the kind of hired muscle that people like Harold Morrison used when they wanted to send a message. "Gentlemen," I said to my friends, "I think we're about to have company." The front door, which had been damaged in the break-in, was kicked open with enough force to send it flying off its hinges. The 3 men entered with the confidence of people who expected to find a scared, defenseless victim. Instead, they found 4 men who'd been in more fights than they could count. "Brandon Ellis?" the leader asked. He was tall, well-dressed, and had the kind of face that suggested he enjoyed his work. "That's me." You need to stop what you're doing. This is your final warning. Funny thing about final warnings, I said. They're only final if you're planning to escalate. Are you planning to escalate? If necessary. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. What happened next was over in about 30 seconds. These men might have been intimidating to normal civilians, but they'd never faced a group of boxers who'd been looking for an excuse to hit something. Tommy took down the leader with a combination that would have made Muhammad Ali proud. Mike handled the second guy with the efficiency of someone who'd learned hand-to-hand combat in Afghanistan. Ricky and I worked together on the third, using teamwork that came from years of sparring together. When it was over, all three men were on the ground, conscious, but in no condition to continue threatening anyone. Now, I said, kneeling down next to the leader, let's talk about who sent you and where I can find my daughter. He tried to play tough for about 10 seconds. Then Mike showed him what a properly applied chokehold felt like, and he became much more talkative. Harold Morrison hired us, he gasped. Said you were harassing his business associates. Where's my daughter? I don't know anything about your daughter. Mike tightened the chokehold slightly. Wait. There might be something. Morrison mentioned a backup plan. Something about leverage. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Veronica's number. Hello, Brandon, she said when I answered. I think we need to talk. Where is she? Layla's fine. She's with me. We're having a nice conversation about family loyalty and the importance of keeping family business private. If you hurt her, I'm not going to hurt her. I'm not a monster, Brandon. But I do need you to understand that this situation has gotten out of hand. Where are you? The Pinnacle Tech Building. Top floor. Come alone, and we can resolve this like civilized people. The line went silent. I looked at my friends who were standing over the three unconscious thugs like gladiators in an arena. Gentlemen, I said, how do you feel about storming a corporate headquarters? Sounds like fun, Tommy said. Count me in, Mike added. Ricky just smiled. Let's go get your daughter back. The Pinnacle Tech Building was a 30-story glass monument to corporate ambition, rising from the heart of Millbrook Heights business district, like a chrome and steel middle finger pointed at the sky. At 10 o'clock on a Friday night, it should have been empty, except for security guards and cleaning crews. Instead, the top floor was lit up like a Christmas tree. We parked in the underground garage and took the service elevator to the 29th floor, avoiding the main lobby and its security cameras. The elevator opened onto a hallway that led to the executive offices, Veronica's domain. Remember, I told my companions as we walked down the carpeted corridor, we're here to get my daughter, not to start a war. What if they start the war? Tommy asked. Then we finish it. The double doors to Veronica's office were open, revealing a scene that looked like something from a corporate thriller. My wife was sitting behind her massive desk, looking every inch the CEO in her power suit and perfectly styled hair. Layla was in a chair across from her, looking scared but unharmed. And standing behind Veronica, like a bodyguard at a mob meeting, was Ethan Drake. Hello, Brandon, Veronica said as we entered. Thank you for coming. Let her go. In a moment. First, we need to discuss terms. I looked at Layla, who was trying to look brave but couldn't quite hide the fear in her eyes. Are you okay, sweetheart? I'm fine, Dad. They haven't hurt me. Yet, Ethan added, earning a sharp look from Veronica. Ethan, please. We're trying to have a civilized conversation. I stepped closer to the desk, and Ricky, Tommy, and Mike spread out behind me in a formation that would have made any football coach proud. What do you want? I asked. I want you to stop, Veronica said. Stop investigating, stop talking to reporters, stop causing problems for the company and the people who work here. In exchange for what? In exchange for your daughter's safety and a generous divorce settlement. Enough money to start over somewhere far from Millbrook Heights. You want me to disappear. I want you to be smart. This is bigger than you understand, Brandon. There are people involved who won't hesitate to hurt you and everyone you care about. People like Harold Morrison? Veronica's composure slipped slightly. How do you— Never mind. Yes, like Harold and others. What others? People who have invested significant money in this company's future. People who don't appreciate interference from disgruntled ex-employees. I was about to respond when my phone buzzed with a text message from Detective Hall. Building surrounded. Harold Morrison in custody. You have 5 minutes. I showed the message to Veronica, whose face went pale. It's over, I said. Harold's been arrested. The police have recordings of your conspiracy. The only question now is whether you want to make this easy or hard. Ethan stepped forward, and I noticed he was holding something behind his back. Maybe we should make it hard. He brought his hand around, revealing a pistol that looked expensive and well-maintained. The kind of gun that corporate executives kept in their desk drawers for protection. Ethan, Veronica said sharply, put that away. No, I'm tired of this amateur hour bullshit. We should have handled Ellis permanently from the beginning. Dad, Layla whispered, her voice small and scared. I held up my hands in a calming gesture, but my mind was racing. Ethan was holding the gun like someone who'd never actually fired one in anger. Finger on the trigger, grip too tight, stance all wrong. He was dangerous precisely because he was incompetent. Ethan, I said carefully, you don't want to do this. Conspiracy and fraud are white-collar crimes. You'll do a few years in minimum security and come out with your life intact. But if you hurt my daughter, that changes everything. I'm not going to prison, he said, his voice rising. I've worked too hard to get where I am. Where you are is pointing a gun at a college student while the police surround the building. That's not the behavior of a successful businessman. That's the behavior of a desperate criminal. Shut up! He swung the gun toward me, and I saw my opportunity. The thing about spending years in a boxing gym is that you develop reflexes, the ability to see an opening and exploit it without conscious thought. When Ethan turned the gun away from Layla, even for a second, I moved. I covered the distance between us in 2 steps, grabbed his wrist with one hand, and drove my other fist into his solar plexus with enough force to double him over. The gun went flying, sliding across the polished floor and coming to rest under a filing cabinet. Ethan collapsed, gasping for air, and probably wondering why his expensive suit hadn't protected him from a blue-collar beating. Layla, I said, not taking my eyes off Ethan, come here. My daughter ran to me, and I wrapped my arms around her, feeling the relief flood through my body like warm water. Are you okay? I'm okay, Dad. I'm sorry about the TikTok video. I didn't understand what was really happening. It's okay, sweetheart. None of this was your fault. Veronica was still sitting behind her desk, looking like a general whose army had just surrendered. You have no idea what you've done, she said quietly. I've protected my family and exposed a criminal conspiracy. Seems like a good night's work to me. The people Harold was working with won't just disappear because he's been arrested. They have too much invested in this deal. Then they can take it up with the FBI, because that's who's going to be investigating this mess. The office doors burst open, and Detective Hall entered with a team of officers, their weapons drawn, and their expressions all business. Everyone on the ground, she shouted. It's okay, I called out. The situation is under control. Detective Hall surveyed the scene. Ethan curled up on the floor, Veronica sitting calmly at her desk, my daughter safe in my arms, and my friends standing ready for whatever came next. Brandon, are you all right? We're fine. Ethan had a gun, but it's under the filing cabinet now. One of the officers retrieved the weapon, while another began reading Veronica her rights. She accepted the handcuffs with the same dignity she'd shown during board meetings, as if being arrested for conspiracy was just another item on her corporate agenda. This isn't over, she said, as they led her toward the door. Yeah, it is, I replied. It's been over since the moment you decided I was disposable. As the police finished processing the scene, Detective Hall pulled me aside. We got everything we need from the lake house. Harold Morrison, the financial records, the real estate scheme, it's all documented. The district attorney says this is the biggest corporate fraud case the county's seen in 20 years. What happens now? Now you testify, they go to prison, and you try to rebuild your life. I looked around Veronica's office, the expensive furniture, the awards on the walls, the view of the city that she'd worked so hard to achieve. All of it built on lies and betrayal. I think I can manage that. Epilogue. The villain's victory. 6 months later, I was sitting in Southside Boxing Gym, wrapping my hands and preparing for a sparring session with Ricky, when the news came on the television mounted in the corner. Former Pinnacle Tech CEO Veronica Ellis was sentenced today to 8 years in federal prison for conspiracy, fraud, and money laundering, the anchor announced. Board member Ethan Drake received 6 years, while company PR director Tina McAllister was sentenced to 4 years after cooperating with prosecutors. Harold Morrison, the alleged mastermind of the scheme, received the maximum sentence of 12 years. Prosecutors say the conspiracy defrauded investors of more than $20 million and would have resulted in significant losses for the city's pension fund. Ricky looked up from his own hand wraps. How does it feel to be vindicated? Like justice, I said. Cold, hard justice. The news story continued with footage of Veronica being led from the courthouse in handcuffs, her expensive suit replaced by an orange jumpsuit, her perfect hair disheveled, her corporate confidence completely gone. The reporter mentioned that Pinnacle Tech had declared bankruptcy, that dozens of employees had lost their jobs, and that the city was still dealing with the economic fallout from the scandal. I should have felt guilty about that. 6 months ago, I might have. But 6 months ago, I was still the man who fixed things quietly and stayed out of the way. The man who believed that being decent and hard-working was enough. The man who trusted the people he loved not to destroy him for profit. That man was gone. He died in a hotel parking garage while watching his wife betray him with another man. He'd been buried at a Christmas party in front of half the town. The man who remained was something different, something harder, something that Veronica had created when she decided to treat him like extra weight. She'd wanted a villain. She'd gotten exactly what she asked for. My phone buzzed with a text from Layla, who was back at college and speaking to me again. Saw the news. How are you doing? I texted back, I'm doing fine. Better than fine, actually. Any regrets? I thought about that for a moment. Did I regret the destruction of my marriage? No, it was already destroyed. I just made it official. Did I regret the collapse of Pinnacle Tech and the jobs that were lost? Those jobs were built on fraud. They were always going to disappear eventually. Did I regret becoming the kind of man who could systematically destroy the people who tried to destroy him? Not even a little bit. No regrets, I typed back. Sometimes you have to become the villain to defeat the real villains. Love you, Dad. Love you too, sweetheart. I put the phone away and finished wrapping my hands. In the ring, Ricky was waiting with that knowing smile he got when he was about to teach someone a lesson. Ready? He asked. Always. We touched gloves and began to circle each other. Two men who understood that sometimes the only way to win is to be willing to fight harder and longer than your opponent expects. Outside, the city of Millbrook Heights was slowly recovering from the scandal that had dominated the news for months. New businesses were moving into the empty storefronts, new jobs were being created, and life was moving forward. And somewhere in a federal prison, my ex-wife was learning that actions have consequences, that trust once broken can never be repaired, and that underestimating people is the most dangerous mistake you can make. She'd called me extra weight. She'd tried to dispose of me like garbage. Instead, she'd created something much worse, a man with nothing left to lose and the skills to make sure everyone who wronged him paid the price. The villain she'd made wore work boots, drove a beat-up truck, and had learned that sometimes the only justice you get is the justice you take for yourself. And he was perfectly fine with that.